This is just too much fun. Are you kidding me?
Too much
Thank you.
fun, I know.
Thank you so much for coming on to Leadership Lean In.
Well, I am pumped to be on, honored that you would even ask, and it's going to be a great conversation.
You're just the best. First of all, I just have to tell you, I love your family. I
Yes.
love your dad the most, I think.
Hey, not offended. He is probably the biggest personality, so there's a lot to love there. There's a lot to love.
The last time I was with your dad was at the Tebow
Yeah,
golf thing, and I just love that he just wants to talk church, like evangelism.
yeah.
He wants to talk about discipleship. Like he's fired up.
Totally. No, that he is the most passionate person. And I think that's the thing that people probably wouldn't expect from him. If you sit down with him for like 2 hours, you're going to talk about church. You're going to talk about evangelism. You're going to talk about how the church actually can reach people, if the gospel's really changing people. Like he's going to go all the way there. We stay up way too late. More often than not, talking about the church and just deep conversations. Anytime we go over there, but I love his heart. It's a pure heart.
Yeah, I was so inspired. I really was. And I thought about our conversation a lot of times after, just thinking, wow, this is a guy that's really obsessed with trying to figure out and
Totally.
crack the code on how we, accomplish this great commission. So I'm
Totally.
just, so I love that he can do it with a smile and a laugh and
Yeah,
just,
he's funny.
he's so jovial. So, anyways, okay. So I want to talk about leadership. You are an unbelievable leader. Probably, by the way, I don't know if I've told you this. You did such a great job at Passion,
Oh, thank you.
speaking, not even in the room. Like, where did you record that and how many people were in that room?
That's a great question. So, literally, that was the craziest story. So, I had the flu when I got to Atlanta, and I felt just horrible, but I was like, whatever, I can do this, put my mask on, get there, just watch the stage and do it. Then I tested positive for COVID as well. So I had the flu and COVID, double whammy. For all those who have had the flu Rona, I feel for you. It's not fun. But I mean, this is like something I prepared for all year long. Like this is a big moment, and I felt so passionate about the word that God had given me. Just felt very clear that now was the time to share it. And so I was like, ask Louie and Shelly, is there any way I can just record it to like a room where no one's in? Like, I don't even care if anyone is in there. And if it's terrible and it doesn't work and I look sick, then throw it away. But if it works, then just please like get this message out. And they were like, yeah, we'll have it all set up if you come to Passion Church location. They're
Yep.
like, there will be a camera in the back. You'll walk in the other side and just do your thing. So I walk in. Christian was with me. He had already been exposed. Shelly was on the other side of the church, just waving, hey, and the camera, and I just preached the word. And y'all, it was the craziest thing. I mean, right before then I just felt so sick, and then I just felt like God just gave me just a extra breath to get that out. And
Totally.
literally right after, I fell straight down on the floor. But it was just amazing to sit back and watch and be like, wow, God, like you really are strong when we're weak. And the
Wow.
message soared, so it was awesome.
Well, I got to tell you, you didn't look sick. You didn't sound sick.
Thank you.
If I would say anything about sick, I would say it in a complimentary way. That was sick that you pulled it off. Like
I'll take it.
I was so impressed. Preaching to empty rooms when no one's there but a cameraman, that is near impossible. And I was so impressed. I mean, you spoke that like there was 1,000 people leaning in, and of course there was a stadium, that was leaning in. But well, I was so impressed, and it was just so well communicated. But just beyond communication, like you could just sense your passion, your authority, your conviction about it. So it makes sense that you had prepared so well about it. I want to ask you, when did you realize, like, how old were you when you realized that you had influence?
Well, that's a big question. I think, I probably should have realized it before I realized it. I think that a
Mm.
lot of times we don't realize what God's doing in our life, maybe even as He's doing it. And so I think because of my own self doubt, I didn't realize the magnitude of the influence until later on. But I do remember having a moment when I was 17. that I wanted influence. And
Wow.
that was actually crazy because you were there. It was a conference that I was just attending as a about to be senior in high school. You were speaking at it, and you actually said a quote that I still quote to this day, and I've never even shared this with you, but you said, if now is not enough, like if now what you have now is not enough, it will never be enough.
Wow.
And gosh, it just hit me. And then Alex Seeley spoke at that conference. And Alex, I actually never seen a woman preach up to that point in my life. I grew up in a really traditional background.
Wow.
So I had like no context for this even.
And the first person, the first female preacher you hear is like the most mighty,
I know,
powerful woman preacher of our day. I
totally.
mean,
Totally. She is like so powerful, speaks with so much authority, and I'd never seen that before. So when people ask me if this is what I wanted to do, I didn't even know this was something I could do. You know, hindsight, I was always doing this. I was always doing Bible studies at my house. I literally baptized people in my bathtub in like my sophomore year of high school at Bible studies. So I always loved the church, I always loved the Lord and just ministry, but I didn't know what that looked like for me. So, anyways, at this point, I was 17. I just got off Dancing with the Stars. That's a whole nother story and crazy. I had a kind of, I guess, fame, if you will, but I didn't feel like I had influence. I didn't feel like the things I was doing were very significant in the kingdom. I didn't know how like I used that for the good. And so I remember when I saw Alex, I was like, oh my gosh, like what if I did that? And I was like, what if I used like said words that just mattered, that I spoke words that were active in my life, that I spoke the word with the platform that I've been given. And I remember that day I went and started journaling, like, what could it look like if I made Live Original, this concept that was a book, into a ministry? And here I
wow.
am, like, what is that, 7 years later, doing the same thing. And so I will say, I don't know that in that moment I realized like I have influence, or I realized like I have a platform or I have an opportunity and now I want to use it for influence. Because I say this all the time, you can be famous and not be super, like, not really be an influencer. You know,
Right.
you can be an influencer on Instagram and not have much influence on people's life because
Right.
a lot of times, you know, you'll just say stuff that doesn't matter, do stuff that's, you know, making people cheer you on, but it's not doing something that changes the person on the other side of the screen or changes the person on the other side of the words that you speak. And I just realized in that moment, I don't want to build this kingdom for myself. I want to build it for the Lord. And that's when I feel like influence really started happening.
It's amazing. Yeah, because like John Maxwell, he would say his definition would be leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. That's his
Mm,
working definition. And I
it's
totally
good.
agree with you that there is a difference between platform and influence. And
Yeah.
and that's why I'm asking is like, when did you realize you have influence? You probably had platform for a while, but to
Yeah.
have influence is so significant. And I feel like
Yeah.
you do such a great job stewarding it. And it makes sense, like the process of realization, the process of coming into, your
Yeah.
influence and stewarding it wisely. Talk to me
Yeah.
about this new book because I love the title. Where did you come
Yeah.
up with? Give me some of the genesis and just some of the thoughts behind that idea because that concept is so powerful right now.
Yeah, it's great. So my book is called Who Are You Following? And honestly, I was just reading the word one day. And as I was reading through the gospels, I just started to notice that Jesus so often would call people to follow him. He literally would say, follow me. And I was like, that's funny because that's what we do all day long. We follow people. We ask people to follow us. We follow other people. We're trying to grow platform, ministry, whatever, trying to grow a brand, whatever it is. And in doing that, we ask people to follow us. But Jesus like asked the ultimate question of follow me. And it wasn't just like a follow me, like I'm gonna click, a follow on the screen, or follow me like I might like your brand for a second, but when I don't like your brand, I'm gonna tap out. It was like a lay down your life and follow me. Like drop your net, like drop everything and
Mm,
follow me. This like committed follow.
mm,
And from the follow that they had, so much fruit came from their life that changed their whole entire life. And so I just got to thinking about that and started to think about, okay,
mm.
I think that we live in a world that's obsessed with following different people, and we don't realize that as we follow people, we're being led all these different places because who we follow is who's leading our life, right?
Right.
That's just like practical advice. Like if you type in something on the maps and you're following the map, it's leading you where you're going to go. It's the same thing in life. And I just felt like, man, I don't think that we are putting much gravity or weight behind the people that we follow. We're just following them carelessly. And it's leading us to places that we never meant to be. It's leading us to looking in the mirror and looking at a stranger. It's leading us to feeling lost and lonely and insecure and anxiety ridden and all this stuff. And so I thought, well, man, what if we were intentional about following Jesus, and we understood that following Jesus is different than following anyone else? It's not a follow that you follow one day and you unfollow the next day when you don't like, the way that the day looks. It's a committed follow that changes everything about the way you live. And that verse I just love so much in John, where it says, where Jesus says, I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life. No one gets to the Father except through me. And I wanted to bring that verse to just the forefront of people's mind in our day, because I feel like, especially for this generation, like we feel so lost. We are so confused on what truth is. What even is the life?
Yeah.
All this stuff. And what a beautiful promise that Jesus comes in and says, like, hey, don't even worry. Like, don't even think about what way, this way, that way,
Right.
what truth, your truth, my truth. I am the way. I am the truth. I am the life.
Wow.
And so I wanted to help people follow that, because I feel like when you follow Jesus, so much clarity comes to your life, so much purpose, so much love. Your identity is rooted. And man, it's been beautiful. So it's a little bit opposite of following someone on social media. It's a true depth to what the word follow means.
So big. Well, and I always think, at the end of the day, we are a sum total of our influences.
Yeah.
Like we're a total reflect. The way that I even use humor, I'm kind of a copycat of the humor I am exposed to.
Oh, totally.
Or fashion. I dress. I'm kind of a collection of the people that I follow. Faith, the same thing. We're so. I always think we underestimate how impressionable we are.
Totally.
I am so impressionable. That's why I think even our conversations we have to be more careful, because someone could, go off about something and I can be easily impressed by that. And I think it's such an important question. Who are you following? And of course we know the greatest leader, the greatest person, the only perfect person that's ever lived is Jesus.
Yeah.
And I can just sense your passion, to be a Jesus follower. And I love that about you. Who else would you say, out of this, like this book and this message, because really when you write a book, it gets in you.
Yeah.
Who else did you go, like, I'm following, here's a few people in my life that I go, I know no one's perfect, but here are some leaders. Like, I'm in their wake and I'm letting them influence my life. And who would be some of those people, and what draws you to those leaders? What is it about their character, or about the way that they operate, the way that they think? What would draw you to a leader to go, that kind of leader I want to become like?
That's great. That's a great question. I love following leaders. I am biggest advocate for mentors, or even mentors from afar. Before I ever knew Alex Seeley or Kristen Kane or Priscilla Shire, I watched their videos 100 times, just learning from them. Like when I knew I wanted to speak, I didn't, like I said, I didn't know these people, but obviously I could look them up on YouTube. So I would literally watch the sermon once and just hear it and learn from it.
You said that about Priscilla in your message. I love that.
Totally. And then I'd watch it again and listen for how she said what she said. I'm like, first I'm going to receive what she said. Now I'm going to learn how she said what she said, because it was so powerful. And I learned from that. So you can have a mentor from afar. Like you don't have to know the person. If there's an excellent leader out there that you're like, I want to be like, if only I could have lunch with her. Well, thank God she wrote the book, or thank God she posts things on YouTube or has the podcast. And even some of these people that I do know, I still listen to their podcasts all the time and read their books or whatever it is, just to learn. So I have several different ones, and you're so right about being impressionable. Like I said in that talk about Priscilla, I do imitate people. So whenever I listen to someone, I will start talking like them. So about a week before I preach, I have to just stop listening to everyone because I'm like, I will sound just like whoever I had just listened to.
Totally.
And I got to bring my own spin, my own originality to it. But anyways, some of the leaders that I follow, Louie and Shelley Giglio are just great leaders. I mean, I call Shelly often for leadership advice, for ministry advice, business advice, friend advice, all this stuff. She's just an excellent mentor to me. And I think when you look at someone who's gone the distance like that, like they started passion the year I was born, and now they're inviting me in to join what they're doing. I mean, that just shows excellent leadership on their part that they're still doing it. So that just shows their faithfulness and their willingness, because it might be successful, but that is a hard thing to put on. That's a lot of moving parts. And for them to be faithful to that, then also for them to be humble enough to bring in younger leaders and actually like care what we have to say. Like that's one thing that Louie and Shelley have blown me away in, is
Mm,
that they didn't just ask me to be a part of it. They truly wanted my voice to be heard in it.
mm,
And that's meant so much to me. And I think Louie and Shelley, well, I don't think I know this. They believed in me way before I believed in myself. And it took a few years for me to get past my fears and self doubt that I kind of teased talking about earlier. And
mm.
just recently, I was having dinner with them, and they were laughing, like almost crying, laughing at how awkwardly afraid I used to be. And they're like, "You used to be so nervous. You were so awkward." And I'm like, "I know, I really was. That's true. So embarrassing." But man, they've just believed in me, so I'm really thankful for them. And then Jenny Allen's another one who's just been
Mm,
a mentor to me, who leads so well, if gathering and all the stuff that she does. And also what I love about Jenny is she leads so well in her personal life too. She's taught me
mm,
a lot about just, she leads Bible studies at our home. Now I do the same. And just making sure that whatever ministry I'm doing publicly, I'm also doing privately. And
wow.
so she's been an excellent leader for me. My parents, great leaders.
Mm,
Like just so humble, but such giants, in their
yeah.
faith and the things that they've done. But man, like I said, they'll stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning just talking about the heart of God. And so
Wow.
just great, great, great leaders. And I'm very thankful for that. But like I said, if you don't have a leader in your home, or you don't have a leader who you can get a coffee with, there is so many resources out
Yeah.
there. And thank you for having a podcast that's highlighting these leadership skills, because you can learn in so many different ways now.
It's huge. It talked to me about that because you wrote a book called Live on Purpose, and
Hmm.
leadership to me is like it's all about being deliberate. I always think if
Hmm.
you're not deliberate, you'll be default. So
Mm.
if we don't live with intention, we fall back to our bad habits. So you
Yep.
have to be deliberate. Talk to me about okay, so you're a mother. You've got a lot going on. You got a big world. You got a demand on your life. How do you? What are some things? Maybe talk about your private life. You're talking about Jenny Allen. Talk
Yeah.
to me about some non-negotiables would be like a phrase that we would use. Where you just go like, these are the things I have to have in play in my life for me to operate at my best. These are the disciplines that I have.
That's great. Honestly, it's such a timely question, because I feel like I'm really learning that right now. I feel like last year I didn't know what those were. And so I got to the point of feeling burnout. And I'm 24 years old. And I just felt like, no, I cannot burn out. Like, I love my job. I love ministry. I love what I do. But gosh, I'm so tired, and I'm so stressed, and I'm so weak. And honestly, I'm so hurt. And I don't
Mm,
even know if I want to do this anymore.
mm,
And I'm a mom now. And do I want to even do this and be away from my kid? Because, like, that's hard. And just really having these doubts about if I wanted to keep doing what I'm doing, which is what I feel called to do, and just stuck in that place. And so I actually reached out to Jenny, and Jenny gave me some incredible advice, and actually sent me to another person who also gave me incredible advice
wow.
to talk about the power of mentors and leadership just speaking into my life. And this guy he sat with Christian and I, and he asked me this same question you just asked me, and said, what are the non-negotiables? What are the things that you need to stay healthy and be able to do what you're called to do fully, and be able to fully be a great mom and a great wife
Mm,
and a great friend? And man, I literally sat down for a couple days, just got away and really thought through some of those things. And I feel so refreshed. I feel so new. I
mm,
actually posted about this yesterday on my Instagram about how I think for a long time I thought because I'm a leader, I have to be
Mm,
strong. I have to hold it all together. Everyone's counting on me, so I have to be the one that has it
mm,
together. But inside, I felt like so chaotic, so
mm,
weak, so afraid, so many things, but I was not going to let that out. And yesterday, a friend reminded me of that quote that, it talks about don't trust the leader without a limp.
mm.
And she said, the greatest leaders actually are the ones that limp, that do feel weak, but still show up to battle anyways. And so, to be completely honest, I think I'm definitely
Yeah,
limping, and I love that. I want to be a leader that limps. That's okay with
yeah.
me. But I'm still learning what it looks like to balance all those
Wow.
things and what it looks like to not, spread all my time, like not give everything my time to where nothing's really getting the
That's
full
it.
time, and just how to be a great mom, how to be a great wife, how to be a great leader. And I think a lot of that is just being open and honest about where I'm at. And I'm learning to do that the hard way. Some of my non negotiables, I guess, if you will, is Kirsha, I talk about like we don't want to spend weekends apart,
Yeah.
and so if I'm traveling, him and honey are traveling with
So
me.
cool.
If we're going, we're doing it together. We're doing it as a
Wow.
family. My morning time, like I want to spend that with honey.
That's
So
so cool.
if that means wake up to work out earlier before she wakes up, then work out earlier. Just make sure that I get to wake up with my girl. And so I think that, there's some things in my life I'm just learning that's a priority. But I will say, as a young leader, and if you're a young leader out there or you're an older leader, like take the time to
Yeah.
pause and prioritize things in the right
Mm,
place, because you can be young, you can be old, and that burnout can creep in real fast if things are not
mm.
prioritized in the right
It's
way.
huge. And I always think, your no is more powerful than your yes. And the older you
Totally.
get and the
Yeah.
more that you have, I think we all get aware of our capacity and capacity because
Mhm.
I always think, years ago the focus was time management. You got
Yeah.
time management. And I agree with that. But I think the greater question is how are you managing your energy? Because
It's
because
good.
your
Yeah.
energy for honey and your energy for Christian, your energy for the things you have going on, there's only so much of that to go. And when you
Totally.
really are careful with energy, then you go, okay, doesn't I can give an hour or two to something, but the energy it cost me was worth eight. So
Yeah.
I think it's monitoring that part of your life.
It's so true. And knowing what does require more energy, like for me, I'm learning that right now. Whenever I give messages, it takes a ton of energy.
Right.
Like, I got all respect in the world for pastors like yourself who preach every Sunday. Cause I'm like, whew, I only preach every now and then, but it takes a lot of energy. And so whenever I'm speaking a couple times throughout the next few weeks or whatever, and then I'm also writing something like a book project, like that is a lot of energy, and my content mind is like spread. And so just learning like, okay, how do I separate the two enough to where I can pour into
Mm,
both, pour into
mm,
each, or does one need to take a pause for a second until I preach this message? So yeah, managing your energy is huge, and it's definitely necessary. And all these things just require, like you said,
that's it.
intentionality. It just takes intentionality to stop and just do a little reset if you have to. I love how Bob Goff says it. He claps his hands every now and then and he says, sync up. Just sync up with yourself.
How
It's
great of a
so
guy is
good.
Bob Goff? I mean, get out of
Oh my
here.
gosh. Just so great.
Like
So
he should be
great.
from Louisiana. Like he's that good. He
He
should be.
should. You're
He's
totally
missing it.
right.
Stop claiming San Diego,
We need to
Bob.
claim him. We need to claim him.
All right, last question. I want to talk to you about change.
Mhm.
Leadership so much. It's like, you know, this is we're coming from faith background. I recognize there's a lot of leaders maybe listening that you don't have faith, but what for me a truth is in the Bible there was 12 tribes. It says of the 12
Mhm.
tribes, one of the tribes. This is the thing about God. God goes, one of the tribes, their whole job, the men of Issachar, is to recognize the signs of the times so they
Wow.
could know what action to take. So I always think
Wow.
if you don't recognize the signs of the times, you do not know the action to take. And I think a lot
It's
of
true.
leaders, we just keep plowing through and keep going. And I think it's that old thing, what used to work for you is now working against you. And leadership
Yeah.
to me is that thing is going like, I got to make a change before I have to make a change. I got to make the
Right.
right changes. So how do you in your life, I mean, you've dealt with, from a distance, I would say, looking at your guys' life, you've gone through massive change over the last 2 to 3 years, maybe 4, right? You're just in
Totally.
perpetual change.
I
Right?
am, yes.
Okay, so I'm not misreading that. Like you live it, you're like, and it won't always be that way, by the way. Like, like every
Yeah.
kid brings change and there's seasons of change, but like you've lived in a lot of change. How have you,
Yeah.
what leadership truths or principles or thoughts would you have coming out of so much change in your life? Like, how do you deal with that?
It's good. Yeah. It's funny that you say that because I remember having a conversation with my grandpa one day and I was like, oh, it's just a really hard season because so much is changing. There's so much transition. And he said, Sadie, that's life. And he was like, it's not just a really hard season. You have to learn how to deal with that. You have to learn how to lead through that, because I think I just thought, well, this is just a season. It will pass. It'll go away. We'll come out of this somehow, stumble out of this. But he's like, no, like, don't stumble out of it. Like, lead through it. Like, learn
Yeah.
to live in it. Learn to grow in it. Learn to deal with the things that are at hand. And so, really, it kind of woke me up. And I was like, whoa, like, it's not just a season that's just going to pass. And yeah, of course it will. But, like, it's a season that I actually need to look at and steward well. And so at the time, what he was speaking to was our team was going through some transition. We had someone leaving. And that was the first time I had really dealt with that massive of a change in our leadership team. Someone that was leaving that had done a lot for LO, and I was needing to replace her. Also, it was 1 month after I had Honey, so I'd just become a mom. So transition was crazy. I was also finishing Who Are You Following, my book. That was changing, and everything just felt totally
Right.
chaotic. I mean, in those first month of having a newborn, you are like, forget whatever you thought was going to happen with the schedule. There's no schedule. The baby just eats, sleeps, cries, all the stuff. I loved Honey with my whole heart, but it was crazy. And so I just needed to like look at that and learn. And so what I realized though was, man, we need a bigger team.
Wow.
Like we just do. And so I looked at what we need for the team. It's kind of interesting. You said like the 12 tribes, like who needs to be where? What
Great.
do we need? What do I need to be able to do my job? So I'm not doing
Great.
everybody's job. And so made a lot of changes within our team, added some people in to do specific jobs that I was kind of carrying for myself, and learning how to pass that on and trust other people with it that are also gifted. And man, it was such a
Wow.
blessing because now we have a bigger team, which also comes with challenges, but a bigger team. And now everything's running a lot more
Mm.
smoothly, with Christian and we had to talk about, okay, I'm going to help Honey with this, but you're going to make all her bottles because you can help
Right.
me with that. So like, okay, this is how we're going to
It's
do this
awesome.
together. And so I think that sometimes you just expect change to just go
Mm.
away eventually. Like it'll eventually work itself out. And a lot of that is true. A lot of times change and time with change does work itself out and everything gets back together. But most of the time, you really do
That's
have to
right.
lead. You really have to step up and say, what can I do to make this situation better? What can I do to help this from not happening in the
Mm.
future? What can I do to build a more firm
Mm.
foundation? And at the time, for me, that looked like building a team and putting people in the right place. And now that's thriving. And it looked for me like me and Christian getting on the same page of how we're going to parent together. And now that's doing great. Honey's still not sleeping, by the way. But
But we're
hey,
going to change
we
that.
figured it out. We figured it out. We figured it out, and we're doing just fine. And I don't drink caffeine, and I'm thriving. So it's okay. Everything's okay. We're doing good. But I say that to say, friends out there listening and leaders, like you might be thinking this is totally chaotic. Everything feels out of whack. Nothing feels like it's working out. And I just want to say that's okay. So many leaders have been there. The more I talk to people,
That's
the
right.
more I realize that that's a kind of a common place to be. And we might keep finding ourselves
Yep.
in that place, as time goes on. But in those moments, like make the changes you need to make to be able to lead the best that you can do. And eventually you'll look back and say, man, like, although that seemed crazy,
Yep.
look what came out of that season. Like when I look back at that time, I'm like, that was crazy. That was chaotic. But look at what came out of that season for me. Like I have so many more people on this team that are dedicated to this mission and that are awesome. Me and Christian have such a better marriage. We have a great
That's
relationship
right.
with our daughter, like, so much comes out of that time where
That's
things
right.
feel
And
pressing.
I always think, I don't know if you're the same, but I'll look back on life and go, wow, those were the good old days. We had it so good. But I never felt like that in the
Yep.
moment. In the moment, I
No.
was like, we're working,
Yeah.
we're growing, we're leading, we're changing, we're engaging. And so I think it's just always important to realize, even amidst change, you can still have gratitude. I think you have to
Yeah.
have sobriety. I think sometimes,
Yeah.
it's like in our world in church, people go like, everybody's saying this or everybody's talking about this. And I always go, who's everybody? And then they list like one or
Yeah.
two people. You're like, I, I think there's like two. So I think, it's like, I think change can feel overwhelming. There's so much change
Totally.
happening. Is there? I think there's just one
Yeah.
transition. And I think you already said it, but it's like making sure we don't repeat the same mistakes.
Yeah.
Insanity
Yeah.
insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. So change
Yeah.
allows me to change. It's not that they always need to change, it's that I actually have maturing to do. I've got, our
Yes.
infrastructure, our systems, our, fill in the blank. So I love that. Well,
Yes. And I love that point. You're so right. I think one thing with change is it does kind of require humility as a leader, because a lot of times when things are changing, when things are happening and feel chaotic, you're not going to be able to lead perfectly. You're probably going to lead a little messy. But like you said, those are the moments that make you stronger. Those are the moments that make you better. Those are
that's
the
it.
moments that you just got to own the limp that you have and say, hey, I'm here to battle. I'm here to fight. We're here to make this better. And we're not going
That's
to do
it.
this again. So let's make sure we do it right.
And I think change allows you, it's like Andy Stanley says, people admire your strengths, but they relate with your weaknesses. And when you're in change, it's
Totally.
like
Yep.
everybody knows you're weak right now. You're
You're
weak.
weak. Yep.
So we're
Yep.
gonna lead through it. But I'm really grateful for who you guys are. You and your husband. You guys are. I was just listening to you tell that Alex Seeley story and thinking you're gonna be that Alex Seeley for so many people around the
Wow.
world. And so thank you for using your influence, not just your platform, but your influence. And I adore your whole
Thank
family.
you.
I love your siblings. I love the whole crew. And
Yeah.
we're just grateful that, God raised you guys up to lead in this time.
Thank you. Well, we're so grateful to know you guys. Y'all's family is just absolutely precious, and I love the ministry y'all lead. We got to get back out to VU and see you guys. Oh, VU. I was
It-
just
it-
talking about Richmond.
don't worry.
We got to
This
get back
happens
out to
all the time to
Sadie.
both of us. It's the
I
same.
literally was just telling my friends about the time I spoke
I
there.
wouldn't have,
That's
I wouldn't have
hilarious. And
even
now I
said anything. It's honestly,
I know, but I meant to say, Zoe, we got to get there because I love that church and I love your
I
family
remember
and
when
we
we
love your
first
leadership.
started, you guys were coming through a lot, like in the first
We
year.
did. We did. And we got to come
I
and we
remember it.
loved it. It's, don't worry. Even though I
Stop,
messed up my
stop,
words,
stop.
I know what I'm
I
talking
know,
about.
I know.
I know
Stop,
what I'm
stop. You don't
talking
even
about.
have to.
I love your leadership. So thank you so much for having me on. And I appreciate it so much. Thank you for how you're pouring into leaders and just giving all of us such great advice.
You're
We
the
appreciate
best,
it
and
so
I'm
much.
so excited to read your book. Thank you for just sitting down, taking the time to write that. Max Lucado, last thought. Max Lucado says, "You never have an audience more captive than when they are reading your writing." So cool that you're putting out books. I know you have podcasts. I know you have
Wow.
speaking. Yeah, but I just love that you committed to books because that's going to speak to so many people. So we love you
That's so
guys.
cool.
Good luck with Honey. Tell Christian we say hi. Hey, so this is like our first ad.
It's pretty cool.
This is in How Much Does God Love Us? It's about coffee.
This is a special moment.
You're
for us.
probably the person that knows the most about coffee in my life and is the most coffee connoisseur. So we get to talk about, how about trade coffee?
Yeah, trade coffee.
Didn't you say that you used to subscribe and now you're resubscribing?
Yes, I'm resubscribing. I'm doubling down
Ooh.
in because it's so easy to get coffee from Trade Coffee that you will enjoy. That works perfectly for you.
Yeah, whether you take your coffee full-bodied roast, these are terms you know, I don't. Something light. We all have our preferences. I just bring what Nate has cooked up.
Yes.
And no matter what you love to drink, Trade Coffee makes it easy to brew your best cup at home. Wait,
Yes.
did you use this at home?
Yeah, I use this at home. So you log in and you take a quiz. It feels like,
On coffee that you like.
yeah, this is how I do it at home. This is how I like it.
It's
when
like
I
the
go out.
Enneagram for coffee.
Exactly it.
Trade sells the freshest roasted and ethically sourced beans from America's best independent roasters. They ship free to you as often as you'd like, whole or ground, whether you're a coffee nerd like Nate,
Like myself.
or just want a better daily cup like me. Trade's real coffee experts taste test over 400 roasts. Is this real?
Yeah, this is true.
400 roasts.
Yes.
And use technology to match you to your ideal coffee based on your preferences and brewing method. Take the coffee quiz. Nate took it for us.
Yep.
Trade Coffee guarantees you'll love your first bag or they'll replace it for free. These guys are very on top of it.
This is how I find all my favorite roasters.
Jeez.
Just through Trade Coffee. I'd go on.
They've been featured on New York Times, Wired, GQ, and they have delivered over 5 million bags of coffee. Their subscription is no hassle. Skip the shipments, change your frequency, or cancel at any time. And guess what? For leadership listeners,
Here we go.
we are going to have a $20 off your first 3 bags.
Wow.
Go to drinktrade.com/LLI, which stands for, of course, Leadership Lean In. That's more than 16 cups of coffee for free. I'm excited.
16 cups. That sounds like, yes, that's one day.
Yeah.
For me, I'm going all in.
That's it. Let's drink some coffee. Trade
Trade
coffee.
Coffee.